Alrighty, welcome to Supernatural Signals, my haunted journal edition. If you are new here, this is my haunted journal. It's where I casually yap about what's going on in my life, especially anything supernatural I'm experiencing. I also share channel updates, everyday life with my boyfriend, nicknamed Kermie, and thoughts on things in the media like true crime, though the supernatural is usually the main focus. On this channel, you'll find 3 types of content: this haunted journal series, short mini mysteries, which you can find over in my shorts tab, and I just dropped one yesterday, so if you're interested, please go check that out, and longer investigative deep dive videos. So if you're interested in anything like that, especially in the supernatural side of things, please consider subscribing. Thank you. All right, so we have a lot to cover in this one. So I think this is going to be a longer video. You can tell by how long this video is. You probably know better than me right now. But yeah, so this is probably going to be a longer video. I have some updates on like shows and movies I'm watching. Mostly a movie I watch Obsession. That's probably going to be the main thing I'm talking about. Touching on just some video games I'm playing and just kind of like I don't know, just updates on my life, updates on the channel, which there's not much updates on the channel, but just that's how I usually start off the podcast, just updates on my life in the channel and just entertainment things wise. And usually the entertainment wise starts sparing into the supernatural. So if you're new here, that's usually how this has come to be. So updates on me and Kermie, nothing much. We've been just, you know, trying to survive the heat. I mean, it's been hot here, but not as hot as sometimes where the area I live can get. I know everyone else is experiencing like our normal summers. So it's like, well, this is what we have. So there's that. This is typical for us. So it's not too bad for us, but I know a lot of people are experiencing heat wave. And I also know I lived in the Northwest for a hot minute, and I know like places like that aren't always like equipped for this type of stuff. So if you're living in a place and you're experiencing a heat wave and you're not equipped for it, I've been there, it sucks. And I hope y'all are I don't know, it sucks. Get an air conditioning unit is like you have to nowadays. It's global warming and wherever the heck is going on. You have to nowadays. It's people, I don't know. It's not worth it, bro. It is not worth it. Because like when I was first there, I was like, I can survive the few months of the summer or whatever. And I didn't have a air conditioning, and I was like, no, I cannot. I was dousing my cats with ice. Like it was just like, don't get a freaking AC unit if obviously if you're able to, right? Because it's so worth it. All right. So I hope everyone's staying safe, all their pets and everything that are staying cool as much as they can be, and all that. So moving on from there, as far as anything interesting going on, nothing too much. Just took Buddy on a walk. It's the 4th of July as I record this. So everyone has a safe 4th of July and your pets stay safe. I have little calming things for Buddy, so hopefully he'll be okay. Usually he'll just come into my room and kind of like snuggle. So he's usually okay with that, but I'll keep an eye on him. Kitty's always been a little partial hearing. Kermie has a suspicion that she's hard of hearing, but really hard of hearing when she chooses to be, because sometimes she can hear things. I just didn't realize it, and then Kermie kind of like proved it to me, and I was like, that little stink butt. She's a unique girl, but she so she's usually okay with that. Like she might curl up in my arms a little bit, but she's usually okay with that because she's never had the best of hearings. So anyway, again, I hope everyone just stays safe and have fun, but don't don't go take your fireworks and start blowing up neighborhoods, right? It's sad that we have to say that nowadays. But anyway, okay, so let's move on. Things I've been watching. I've been watching this show called Widow's Bay, and that was really, really good. We still haven't finished it. We're about halfway through. We got through the episode of where they kind of do a historical scene, so it's like back in the past and kind of explain the history of the town or the island. And so we stopped there. I'm going to go back to it hopefully the rest of this weekend. Kermie and I like to kind of like savor shows once in a while, so we're definitely coming back probably tonight, honestly, and finish that up because it's very good. We didn't stop it because we didn't like it. It's just we started doing other things. People know how life goes. So we're going to finish that this weekend, hopefully, is the plan. Really good. Very and the theme of the show is, I kind of want to touch on this with obsession as well. Is kind of the thought of people not believing things until they experience, right? And then it's like, oh, now I need help, and you know what I mean. So I'm going to get into that in a minute, but um and I have more to say about that. And then I have another topic that is more related to the Flanagan Islands that I posted about in my shorts. So those are like the main things we're going to be talking about, and spread that out into the supernatural element world. I guess I have a plan. It makes sense in my head. I promise. Okay, so 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 with the flannel, not the flannel. I'm sorry. With the island, uh, with Widow's Bay, it's about this guy who's a mayor in this island that's isolated from the outside world. People that are born on the island are said to not be able to leave the island. So people that come in and visit, or people that like move there, can leave the island, but people that were born there apparently can't. And there's a lot of spooky things and a lot of like supernatural things, but nothing like crazy. Like they'll have like a haunted hotel and things like that. And then throughout this process, the thing, and so, and the sorry, I'm gonna back up. And the mayor's main goal of this town or this island is to start getting people from the outside world to come in and start using their amenities to get them more economy. So his heart is in the right place, right? He really wants to lead this island to make it, this hot spot for the summer for tourists and things like that, right? And so he's having this guy from the New York Times come in and write this article. So it's really important, and things have to go swimmingly well, right? So it's an island that kind of has like a spooky vibe, and there's like some like haunted hotels, kind of like the Menger in San Antonio and things like that. Like, but there's nothing like crazy going on, right? It just has a spooky element to it, like kind of like New Orleans, right? That's the way I would describe it. Well, there is this like old town guy that's kind of like known in the island, and he's kind of, the locals really like him, and he has a good reputation, and they just really defend him a lot. But he's also kind of known as a little woo woo, like out there, right? And so, but everyone like loves him, right? Except the mayor has issues with him, which I'm about to get into. So why he's preparing for this writer to come. This guy comes into this area, into their meeting, right, in the city hall or whatever you want to call it, and like breaks up the meeting. He's like, you need to shut down the town. And he's like, what? And he's like, the fog is rolling through. And he's like, what? And like, like, and he's like, no, I have a very important person coming today, like we cannot shut down anything, right? And they have like one nice restaurant that cannot be shut down, like, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of comedy in it too, so it's really good. So like before all the spooky stuff is, you get like a lot of the comedy elements, and it's still fast paced, but kind of like amping up to the story. And he's like, no, you have to shut down the town. And he's like, no. Like, and so so Wick is the guy that I was describing, the town. I don't want to say loony, but the town like guy that does his own thing, does his beat of his own drum, right? And then Tom is the mayor, right? So I guess I should have given the names, but so I can talk about them more clearly. So Wick goes about. So Tom, the mayor, basically just goes about and ignores him, right? He's like, no, we're not shutting anything down. Like, and he starts prepping for the guy to come, and then when he does come, he starts introducing him and showing them town and stuff. And then Wick, on the other hand, is just running around the town and starts like breaking things down, and like, trying to like board up a hotel and everything like that to pretend, just doing his own thing, right? So the writer comes, it's successful as much as it can be, but weird stuff starts happening, right? And Tom sees it, but is kind of like ignoring it, right? And weird stuff starts happening, right? So we're kind of in the midst of the writer leaving, and then writing this letter, and then Wick is just like losing it because these folks are getting word of now the island being a good place to come and have a vacation. And so Wick is freaking out because he's like, these people cannot come because the fog is here and bad things are going to happen. And in between these episodes, small things start happening where it's like, this happened before. And so what kind of kicks things off is Wick goes and he tries to border up the hotel and tries to get people not to stay there. And so they get the cops involved. And then obviously Tom shows up. He's like, what are you doing? Like, people are coming to stay here. And he's like, people cannot stay in this hotel. It's haunted as heck. And people cannot be on this island. Like, it's not right. Like, it's, it's harmful. It's going to mess them up. Right. And you're not listening to me. Bad things are going to happen. And um, so basically they get Wick arrested for disturbing the peace or whatever. And then, later on, Tom goes to go pick up food. And then the people that like Wick kind of like start picking on him. And so Wick confronts him. He's like, hey, like, I get it, but we need an economy here. And like, I get Wick is a good guy, but like, trying to like make peace with it. And the guys are like, okay, well, we'll leave you alone if you go to the hotel and spend the night there and do all these kind of like things that are supposed to bring out ghosts and stuff. So like there's like a list of tasks to do. And he's like, fine, like whatever. If you do that and like let people come and just enjoy this place so we can build our economy and be happy, I will go do that, right? And obviously he's low-key scared, but you know what I mean? He's not going to admit that. So he goes to the hotel room. It's this big thing. He goes to the scariest room. And I'm not going to I've already given a lot of spoilers, but I'm not going to explain what happens in the hotel because there's a lot. But it's really well done. Really, really well done how they do that scene. But turns out he gets his pants. He freaks the F out, right? Like, there's very clearly he experienced a paranormal situation, right? And so he wakes up the next day and he's freaking out. He gets the people that are involved, like the hotel manager and like the police, and then obviously Wick, and they're kind of like discussing it. He's like, was anyone here? Like trying to like find a plausible explanation. And then they watch the footage, and the footage of him is basically interacting with what was a ghost that he thought was a person. You have to watch it, but like it's basically him interacting with nothing and being scared and like, really well done. And they're like, yeah, most of them are like, yeah, this is, especially Wick is like, you see, like, and he was terrified and he was admitting that it was terrified, right? And so, but then they go into the room and they're thinking about what to do. And basically Tom and Wick is like, we cannot have people stay here. We can't have the people experience what you experience. It's not right. It's not morally right, right? And Tom is basically about to fold and he's like, yeah. And so they're about to close it up. But then the cop looks in and he sees supposedly black mold in the wallpaper. Like the wallpaper was kind of falling down. He's like, maybe you just hallucinated. And he's like, yeah, that must be it. We're gonna keep the town open, even though he knows he had a paranormal experience. Like they just made an excuse. They're like, the reason you were talking to nobody was because you were hallucinating. And by the way, it was like 6 hours since he got there and he didn't even spend the whole time in that room. Like he's like, we'll just clean the mold and then like lock down the doors and then like it'll be fine. And so they're still going to open up the town. And then after that, even more scary stuff happens to the point that Tom has to get Wick's help to like save his life, basically, from the spirits because he doesn't know what he's dealing with and didn't listen to Wick in the first place. So we have two topics that I want to expand upon after I talk about obsession with that. But you probably guessed it. One is, first of all, how humans, I've talked about this before, I know, but how humans essentially gaslight each other into not believing what they experienced, right? They will find anything. And the universe, if you search hard enough, or not even search hard enough, but you keep trying to find an excuse, they will hand it to you because they realize you're not ready to continue on in that aspect, or you're not ready to like see what's really there, right? You're not willing to learn from this, so you'll learn in a different way, right? And he sure did, right? And that's how the universe works. Like they will provide an explanation for you if you're really looking for one, right? And Wick, on the other hand, wholeheartedly is it. He's 100% it, and he will not let the universe gaslight him, right? He knows what he witnesses on this island, and he knows like the fog rolling in means more and more bad things are happening. Something opened, and all hell is breaking loose, right? And then the other thing we can learn and lean on is that people will not believe, especially in something in the supernatural, even just everyday life, right? Like you look at so many things where people like maybe might not have sympathy for something, but then when they go through it, like whether it be like losing someone or or whatever, just human life events. And until like, like maybe there's someone that's like, oh, you just need to get a job if someone gets laid off. And it's like, go get a job. Like that's what I had to do back in, 20 years ago when it's easier to get a job. And then they get laid off at like 50 years old. And they're like, yeah, now we get why, you know, all the generations under us are having a hard time because it's really hard to find a job out there. Like, you know what I mean? Like you don't get the empathy until you experience things, right? You don't get the it's like some people just don't realize it or could think past a certain point if you have experienced it. And with the supernatural, that's understandable, right? Because it's something so foreign to humans, even though we watch it, we see it, we get spooked in haunted houses, we've been immersed in it in a way, but at the same time it's like when you experience it, whether it's a supernatural journey or seeing something scary or seeing something like a glitch, all those things you can't you the proof is experiences, right? That is the proof for right now. Maybe there's in the future we can have a more substantial, as we learn more about the supernatural, like this is paranormal, this is not, this is being able to categorize things easier as we learn more. But as of right now, proof is experiences. And people don't understand there's a reason why we have all these laws and rules and why you got to act fast sometimes, like Wick was saying, and like all these things, because they haven't experienced yet. So they think, oh, all this malarkey, all this hokum, that's my new word, by the way, all this hokum, like look it up. It's basically saying like all this malarkey, basically. Like, and until they experience it and they're like, oh no, now we know when the fog hits, don't fucking leave the house. Like, you know what I'm saying? And again, people can't experience it, like accept it until they experience it, right? And then this goes into where I'm about to talk about obsession in the trust aspect. So let's say you're like Wick and you're very experienced in these things. When do you know it's ready to trust Tom, who's kind of like in the middle of his journey of really seeing what's going on, right? Like he might have already kind of like had an idea of the supernatural, just kind of didn't really believe it, and now is like really stepping into it. When can you trust Tom to be fully in and trust him with these important rules of the supernatural, right? And that's what me and HG discussed today on when I was walking Buddy. I was calling him and discussing that with him. And that is where I'm going to go also with obsession. So let's put that on hold and let's get into obsession. Okay, so I'm sure you've heard of Obsession. That was like the big movie of 2026. It only was like a $750,000 budget, from my understanding, and it grossed like 350 million. Like it went crazy, and it really wasn't in theaters that long. I think it's still in theaters technically, but they're also putting it on streaming. That's how we watched it. Kermie and I were actually going to go watch. It was funny. We were going to go see a really early showing, just because we don't do crowds, and we had stuff to do and things like that. So we were like, let's just do an early showing, like no one's gonna be seeing it this time. But then like literally, like as we established that, like an hour or so later, I got an advertisement on Instagram saying like, oh, it's streaming now, like you can get it in these areas. So we ended up renting it, and it was really good. I get the hype with it. I still like Hokum better if you're asking about scary movies. I think it's just that's my vibe with scary movies. I think the small town vibe, the quirky characters, the upset, and I'm gonna get more into Obsession of what I like about it and stuff like that. But Obsession had comedy definitely, and they did it really well. But just the type of comedy in Hokum, just the scare. Like I actually was like hiding under the blankets at some time when he was like in the dumb well and like the creepy lady was coming and the little creepy face. It just had my comedy. So it was just like a preference. Not necessarily a better movie, like overall, it just what I like in those type of scary things. Like for movies with me with scary, like I'm not like, I guess I'm like particular about my scary movies, right? And things with Obsession, I was more, what's the word? I was more disturbed. I wasn't necessarily scared, right? I was very disturbed. And I think if that was their goal, they 100% hit it because it was disturbing as F. And considering this was like his first like movie, and he's a young director, the guy that directed it is Curry Baker. He was a YouTuber. I know his family's in the business. but he's was a successful, still is a successful YouTuber. I really don't know too much about him like in that aspect, but I found out about him through this movie. Um, and for being such a young guy and like putting together this type of movie is, I'm really excited to see what he does as he gets older, because I really liked it. Now, did I think it was like the I'm gonna be honest. This is gonna be, people are gonna hiss at me. I feel like the bar is has been, and I think it's getting better, has been a little low with these type of movies. Like I feel like since we have streaming, it's easy just to throw out slashers and like quickly and stuff like that. And I feel like this kind of genre is starting to come back with like Hookums. I heard Backrooms is really good. I haven't seen that yet, but and Obsession was also very good. But lately, it's like, don't get me wrong, this movie was very, very good, but I feel like the bar is kind of low right now, right? If that makes sense. Like it wasn't, I wouldn't put it in the category of how like what's that movie? Where he's like Sixth Sense. I wouldn't put it where it was like that was kind of like a groundbreaking thing. I wouldn't say that, but would I say it was a solid, really good movie worth your time and money? Yes, definitely. And and here's the thing. Okay. So, okay. Let's get into it. So, I kind of said this up on my Instagram. The only character I liked was Nikki before all the stuff happened to her, right? And I think you're supposed to, right? And I really do. I watched a couple interviews with him, and I know the director made it clear that Bear is a selfish person, right? Like not a good guy, and how Ian kind of like was like, hey, you're being selfish here, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like kind of using her like because she's not in a good headspace. And I can appreciate that Ian said that, but that's all he did. He didn't do anything about it, right? And so I'm going to go into like just off the side tangent of how these people are awful. Like these are okay, forget all the supernatural things. I'm going to focus on, so if you don't know the movie, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry. So Obsession is about this guy that's kind of like low self-esteem, and he has a group of altogether 4 friends, so him and 3 other people, right? And it's this one girl named Nikki who he thinks he's really in love with, and wants to tell her he likes her, but can't get up the guts to do it. And then he has Ian, his best friend, and then this other girl, Sarah, and so they're all just like 4 friends, right? And they're all close. So they make it very clear that they're close, right? And they're all in their like early 20s, so they're all kind of like trying to figure out what they're doing in life, and they all work at the same store. And um basically what happens is that he finds out that Nikki, his infatuation, his name is Bear, um eh, she drops her gemstone in the thing. She has like a gem necklace. So he goes to a crystal shop or whatever to go get her another crystal necklace, and kind of give surprise to her, and then tell her basically he likes her, right? So that's kind of like what you're opening with, right? And she's a cool girl. Like she's really sweet. They like explain like, she's the type of person to give money to homeless people, like just very cool girl. She has goals. Like she writes, and she kind of like has high standards for herself. Like she's not one of those, she's just a cool chick, right? I really liked her character, right? And I liked everyone on the character at the beginning. But then he gets to the store or whatever to get this necklace for her, and he ends up finding this thing called like a wishbone or something like that. And when you say a wish and then you crack it, and then your wish comes true. And so he chickens out. He doesn't tell her he likes her. And then when he's dropping her off, after they hung out for the evening, and he was trying to tell her he liked her, and so instead of like telling her he just likes her, and she gives him like an opportunity to do that, by the way, he chickens out, and then she goes back inside to her home, and he says, I wish she loved me more than anything in the world. Nikki loves me more than in the world. He cracks it, and then she comes right out, and it starts working, right? She just starts acting really weird. But the weirdest part of it is like she goes in and out, right? So it's almost like the spirit is like taking over her. And once in a while, it'll be like Nikki for a quick flash. and then it'll go back to normal. And then as it keeps progressing, it's like the bad spirit that like is obsessed with him like takes over her, right? And so it's like you get less and less Nikki, right? And like right off the bat, it's pretty obvious this is not what he wanted. Like he still wants her to like be in love with him, but like this is extreme, right? But instead of like automatically going back to the store and trying to fix it, like he just tries to like live with it and tries to like I don't know, like I don't know what he tries to do. Like he tries to like keep it a secret and act like everything's fine, but clearly she's losing it, right? And it gets worse and worse and worse. And like talking about soiling herself, cooking his dead cat, like not letting him leave, taping the door shut, and he's still not fucking trying to fix the situation, right? So that's kind of what's going behind the scenes. And this is when I explain why I hate his friends and then why you can't trust everyone with the supernatural stuff, right? Especially when they don't know enough about it. So, which goes back to what I was talking about in the previous um show I was watching. So he goes and basically she's just going crazy and his friends are noticing more and more that something's wrong with Nikki. But like and like I said earlier, and Ian, who's his friend, like has a talk with him. He's like, there's something wrong with her, like, and you're kind of like taking advantage of her because clearly there's something mentally wrong with her. And then Bear gets all offensive and she's like, she's fine, blah, blah, blah. I know what I'm doing or whatever. And they go to this party, and this is kind of one of the climax events. She ends up having this full breakdown, seeing something like she's probably the evil spirit, like, and screams away from the spirit and starts hitting herself in the head and starts acting like a lunatic at this party. And none of her friends like call 911. Like none of them, like these are like best friends. Like they don't do anything. They try and get her to the ER to like fix her bandages and she doesn't want to go. So they're like, okay, we'll go back home. And I get like it's a supernatural thing. So mental health maybe wouldn't be the best option. But for Sarah, who doesn't know what's going on, is seeing her friend do that, like has no idea about the wish thing or anything like that, like like if that was like my friend, I would be like, we need to get her something. We need to call her family. We need to do something. Like it was so aggravating. Ian didn't do anything. Like they're just like, oh, did you get her to the hospital? Like, and he's like, we're fine. Like it's like, no, there is something clearly wrong with your friend. And then what happens is all this stuff is happening. And then what happens is kind of towards the end, Bear and Sarah are talking in the car, and basically Sarah confesses that she likes him and that um, Nikki is being, selfish and she has her own issues and all this stuff. And I'm like, she doesn't just have like issues about like getting into college or whatever, like she doesn't have normal life issues. You saw your friend this is like off topic, take a fucking thing and just bash her head until she was bleeding, and like clearly is like went from this like cool chick, independent chick, to like this whiny freak with Bear. There is something mentally going on here, like, you know what I mean? This is not normal behavior for her, and this is supposed to be like one of her best friends, like, and she's just like, she's like being selfish, and so she ends up dying, and I'm kind of like, whatever, like, because I'm like, this is someone you don't trust with the supernatural, right? That's someone that can't see past their thing, right? See past their whatever they got going on, right? And Ian is the same thing. So trying to fix them. So after Sarah goes bye-bye, Ian's like, oh, well, I guess we got to fix this. And so like he actually starts attempting more than just like to fix the situation. So he finally goes back to the shop. He gets the last like little wish thing. I think there's like one or two left. He goes to the Ian. He's like, hey, you have to like reverse my wish, because he kind of explained what was going on to Ian, but Ian's like in his own world and not really understanding it. And Ian's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, just like say it, like unreverse my wish. And he's like, I wish I had $1 billion, and like snaps it and all this money falls down. And then he's like, oh, well, now I believe it. And it's like, you don't see how weird Nikki was. You don't see all these things. Like, you're not putting all these context clues together because you're on your own fucking little weird world and not seeing that your friend's having a mental breakdown and Bear's trying to explain to you what happened, right? That is why you don't trust Ian with the fucking supernatural, right? And that's why Wick doesn't necessarily trust Tom with everything, right? Because they're still in their like, oh, I haven't experienced it yet, so I'm not gonna believe you, even though, like, I saw my fucking friend take a fucking statue and bash herself in the fucking head because she's so obsessed with you. Like, that's how deluded people are still in the real world. And you say it's just a movie. No, no, I've experienced supernatural, and I've seen people that had the chance to experience the supernatural, and they're so caught up in their own world that it still doesn't process to them. So this is why it, like, hits me, where I'm like, no, you don't get it. And but see, it's also not even the fact that, like, it's not even like the fact that involving Ian was like just didn't do anything. It made it worse, right? And so that goes back to the trust issues, and that goes back to, like, who, like, knows enough, like, because obviously Ian knew a little bit. He explained what happened with the wish, and Ian kind of was like, again, hokum, bunch of malarkey or whatever. And even though, again, he was seeing all this stuff, but again, he didn't believe it until he saw all that money raining down, right? And so since Bear trusted him to reverse that wish in a panic, it made it worse, right? So you either have to find someone with, like, no knowledge of anything, and you just pretend, going, hey girlfriend, like, you want to do something for me for like $500 to go shopping at Sephora, like, you want to do this, like, you know what I mean? You just find someone to, like, do that, right? We have no idea what's going on, because then they're just gonna get pissed at you and have a human reaction like Ian did, and said, like, stop with this bullshit and do that. Wish for something stupid. I mean, $1 billion is not stupid, but you get in the context of things, you know what I mean? And, like, make things worse. And then you can see what happens to Ian. Like, he doesn't get to use his money. Let's put it that way. And, like, I hope, I don't know. I put on my Instagram what I hope for Nikki, but, like, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like none of these people, like, were to be trusted with the supernatural. And it's either because they're just selfish people, and no matter how much you teach them about the supernatural, they will always use it to their advantage. And I feel like that would have been like a Sarah person, because of just how she reacted with Nikki's mental health crisis, or they just don't know enough yet, right? And I feel like that's the majority of people, right? Like, I like to think that, where it's like they just can't be trusted with it yet because they just don't understand everything. And same with me. I don't trust myself with everything because I haven't experienced everything, right? But you can respect that you haven't experienced everything, right? And that's why it's important to be able to trust people. And we've seen it in movies all the time. Like, the kids going to summer camp, and the creepy old lady or old man are like, stay away from the camp. And they're like, yeah, whatever, old man. And then they're running to the old man saying, help us. And the old man's like, I tried. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it happens all the time. But that's exactly why you need to be able to go to someone that you can trust. And I feel like with the supernatural, it, I've always said this, I feel like whoever is the man in charge doesn't trust easily. And it's not because he thinks everyone's, or she or they or whoever they are, doesn't trust easily. It's not because he doesn't love the people or see the good side of them and want to take care of them. It's because he wants to take care of them, right? And it's like, if he doesn't trust you to do these things, you could get hurt, right? That's how I see the universe, or the universe as a whole. You can get hurt, if they're not able to trust you, right? So it's like, it's almost like, I feel like when people say I don't trust you, it's always a negative thing. No, it's more like you're just not in that stage to be trusted with this yet, right? Like, I'm not going to go just sign up to be a firewoman without any training, right? And without any experience. Like, I would, there would be a fire and I'd panic and I'd burn the town down. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they wouldn't trust me with that job, and they shouldn't, right? Same thing with the supernatural. And I think these type of movies just kind of like made me think more about that aspect and what you share in your journey. And then also a reminder of saying, like, people have to have their own experiences, right? And then when they do have their experiences and maybe they didn't believe it before, I also think it's important as a community that are into supernatural to be like, yeah, been there, didn't believe it. Like, all right, you can come back, but now you fucking know, right? And here's the thing, since this is my haunted journal, I say this also to, like, a reminder of myself, because there's so much stuff on the supernatural that I haven't experienced. And, I almost feel like I'm almost in like the mayor's journey in in that show I was talking about earlier, because it's like I've seen things, I've experienced things, but you're still in part of that world of, like, having more human experiences than supernatural, right? It feels like Wick had more supernatural experiences, or enough supernatural experiences where it took over his human experiences, right? Like, You know what I mean? And so he just sees the world so differently. And I feel like I'm kind of like in the mayor's realm right now, where it's like, I definitely believe in everything. It's just I've had more experience in the human realm. And HG and Kermie are kind of the opposite, especially HG. And, Kermie's like kind of in between me and HG. And, there's stuff that they discuss that I haven't experienced it. And every time they kind of like bring certain things up, it's like, I experienced this and I believe them because they're trustworthy people. It's just one of those things where I'm still like, it's like I still, as much as I believe in the supernatural, I still find myself being like, all right, I will see it when I believe it type thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know what I'm seeing? And it's and the stuff they discuss, right? And even though I'm kind of excited, it's also scary and it's also unbelievable and it's also frustrating because you're like, well, it's all in between, right? Because I've been living a certain reality, and that's why I understand other people's side, where the stuff I've experienced and I try to explain to people and people are like pish posh, and it's like, okay, well, maybe you'll experience it one day, right? And I feel like that's kind of like HG and Kermie talking about more me discovering more of the supernatural from what I've already discovered, right? So yeah, just keep that in mind. I still find myself going like, having talks with HG and stuff like that, and Kermie, and being like, all right, bro, like, you know what I mean? And, but again, how you can't, on the other side, you can't really blame people because they've been living reality so long. But I think it's really important to be open to the fact that you don't know everything and lean into it a little bit, right? And that is what I'm going to lean into. We're going to move on to something kind of new. And that is the concept of how ghosts, because I've been talking about ghosts a lot. Kermie has a lot more experiences with ghosts. Like I said, I've seen apparitions, I've seen weird objects moving, I've seen weird things happen. Actually, something weird happened to me this morning. I'm not going to go into it because it's kind of like a, a thing I don't want to discuss because it involves something womanly. Like it's TMI, let's put it that way. But it was like a ghost. It was weird, but like it was something weird and stuff. So, but Kermie has a lot more experience with actual like spirits and ghosts, and so he talks to me a little bit about it. But he doesn't like to like, you know, it's one of those things again that you have to like learn about before jumping in, right? And ghosts and being accepting to that aspect of the supernatural. And so Kermie tries to like not shove everything down my throat of what he's learned, right? Now, let's look into the Webster Dictionary of Ghosts. It says the soul of a dead person, a disembodied spirit imagined, usually of a vague, shadowy, or evans, evanescent form, as wandering among or haunting living persons. So you can say spook, shade, revenant, wrath, phantasm, phantom, apparition. So that is the definition of a ghost and some synonyms of ghost, right? Um, Makes sense. So everyone knows what a ghost is, whether you believe in it or don't. Um, Through my journey and talking to HG and everything like that, I feel like with ghosts, they are energy left over from spirits, right? Or whatever you want to call it. Or, if you look at it an alien view, there's always a way to look at it, right? Where it's like, say, like they're, I don't know. It's just someone not ready to go back to wherever we came from, right? Because I just don't agree that whatever your religion is, what you believe in aliens, or if you believe in other things, whatever it is, our human bodies are attached to our soul or something in us, right? There's things, and ghosts just don't want to go back to wherever we come from, right? Um and it's usually because they're mad or they're confused or they're really really angry or they just got lost, or they've been abused so much here on earth that they're just they run away and they don't know where to go. Like, I think there's a lot of confusion involved and a lot of hurt, right? And I think when you deal with ghosts, you have to have a lot of empathy, right? Because you can't experience everything that people have experienced on this earth. That's just impossible. But being able to have patience and understanding and not being frustrated is so important. And I kind of feel like taking care of like pets that have been abused in that type of situation, or fostering kids that have been in those type of situations are examples. In my last haunted journal, I discussed about having, especially with Kitty, it took a lot of patience. She was kind of like freaking out. She didn't like Boo because she wanted to be her the only girl because she got abandoned so much. She'd run around the house. She literally would pee on my head, like literally just pee on my head to mark me. I'd be going trying to get ready for work, and I'm like, I got cat piss on me. Like, it was that type of situation. And but I'm so glad I didn't give up on her. Now I'm not gonna lie. I almost did. I considered being like, I can't take care of this cat. Like she was not like this in the shelter. She was very sweet and like, hello, I'm Kitty. And then she was like, plow, when she got here. But it took like a month or so, and she finally got a good rhythm. And then towards the end of everything, Kitty would actually protect Boo when Boo was scared of something. Like, so that's how much she progressed, right? But it took time. It took me making sure she was trusted and things like that. And I feel like when you're trying to communicate with a ghost, I feel like it's very like that. And that's another reason why I say like adopting things or taking care of things kind of shows how like you're able to make something a situation work, right? And like try and figure out what they're missing and what they need and what the issue is with them in order to move on to whatever you consider the next life, whether it's going back to the mothership or going back to the pearly gates, whatever it is. I don't care, right? Like I like that's not the idea. With the ghosts, I feel like they're just trapped in this never ending cycle, in this never ending loop of never being able to, and reliving their torment and their PTSD over and over again. And when you're in that type of cycle and stage, you're angry, you don't want people in your space, you're scared, you feel like you just don't exist and don't matter, and you haven't had a real conversation with a person in forever, right? Like there's a lot going on, right? And I feel like that with dogs. Like imagine being like, how they use dogs for fighting and just being used to abuse and abuse. You just don't trust people anymore. Like you put all your trust in this person that you would do anything for, and then they just throw you in the ring and you're angry at that person. So maybe the ghosts are angry at the person that put us on here, right? And maybe the person that put us on here wasn't their intention. It was just out of their control, right? And so you have to gain their trust back, just like I had gained Kitty's trust back. Even though I'm the one and didn't do the abuse, I had to get her to trust people as a whole again, right? And know what worked for her and and thank God Boo was like the friendliest cat in the world. Like still is. I still think she's here, but like somewhere. But like, you know what I mean? Like the sweet Boo had no problem with Kitty. She was like, hey girl, like, you know what I mean? It was the opposite. But eventually, like I said, Kitty started protecting Boo, right? And I think when approaching spirits, I think it's almost that same analogy, and Kermie kind of, you know, confirmed that. Now, I want to also say sometimes spirit, like dark entities, mimic ghosts and things like that. And that's a different topic. We won't get into that right now because it'll complicate things. Make sure you're dealing with a ghost. Let's put it that way, first off. You know what I mean? And I have my theories and thoughts of how to do that, and I'll talk about it in another video. But just for now, talking about how to approach ghosts, making sure, first of all, that it's a ghost, right? Because you spirit dark entities are totally something different, and you don't want you can't empathize with those people, right? They're yeah. Anyway, and I also think it's important to approach ghosts or spirits or whatever you want to call them, apparitions, as individuals, right? Like it's customizable of how you approach with them, because everyone has different personalities, different experiences, different issues. Like you can't just say this worked for this spirit Johnny, and so I'm going to apply that this spirit Susie. Like it doesn't work, right? Everyone, that's where the empathy comes in, and that's where we're trying to figure out how they react to things, what they don't like, what triggers them, what's their trigger words, what thing, and that's what you figure out, right? So say you're having like a conversation with them through a spirit box or whatever the case may be, and like you say one word and that makes them explode or disappear. You're like, okay, well obviously they have issues with cherries, right? So let's go from there, right? You know what I mean? And applying it to that scenario, right? Because everyone has trigger words. It's 2026, right? Everyone knows what the word trigger is. Something can mean something to me. It's the same thing with ghosts, right? And you're just trying to figure out what those words, or maybe they won't even like, maybe they'll just like tick or get quiet or something. You have to kind of catch them where it triggers them and figure out their issues from there, right? And again, like having patience with them and letting them letting them vent, right? Letting them have someone to talk to because they just are ignored and they just don't exist. And yeah, so looking at them as individuals, I also think is really important. But I think it's important to be able to, before really dealing, like I was talking about with Kermie, how he doesn't really want me to like start getting into spirits and ghosts at this second. Because it's a lot of prepping work. And I think with ghosts, I think whoever, and this is just my theories of what I've experienced, I can't really go into why I feel this way because it would just be a lot and thing. But my theory is, okay, I'm not saying it's factual, but my theory is that whoever is in charge, okay, of the universe or the whole universe as a whole are probably very protective of the ghosts because they know they've been through a lot and they know their pain and they're probably protective of it. So it's one of those things where it's almost like as humans, you need to prep with it. And that's what I'm saying, like taking care of animals that need help coaxing, like, taking care of your kids that maybe went through a bad thing, volunteering at things, or seeing how you approach everyday life in those type of scenarios. And then seeing if you could apply it to actual ghosts that are in a very fragile state. Right. And so yeah, that's kind of like my thought process as far as like prepping for it and like having the understanding and the patience for it. And because we don't know what I don't know all the way ghosts can do. They can do gross things, they can have bad smells, they can scare the crap out of you, they can use your insecurities against you, like because they're angry, right? So first, a lot of them, maybe not all of them, will fight back, right? And just throw all that shit to you, and you just have to take it in order to help them, right? And I think eventually, once we help them as a whole, or start interacting with them and making them realize not all humans are shitholes, like they can help us, right, with our spiritual journey and our goals and things like that, as far as we start navigating more with the supernatural. um so yeah, and I also think, like, I don't know. I have more thoughts on it, but I think I'm going to leave it here. Um, I do. I'm probably going to leave. I think I'm going to start talking more about spirits and things like that, more and more on this channel, and ghosts in general, because I think that's kind of where I want to lean into, right? And so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna practice what I preach. I'm gonna lean into that stuff. But yeah. So anyway, I do want to end this off with one weird story about Buddy. So yesterday, Kermie, me, and my dad were watching sorry. We were watching this movie called Dr. Love Strange, and it's very good. Highly recommend it. It's hilarious. I kind of wonder if, because apparently one of the characters that's named after, he named himself Dr. Is it Strange? Is it Strangelove? I think it's Dr. Strangelove. And he named himself that when he moved or whatever because his name was too hard to pronounce. And that, I kind of wonder if that was like inspired by McLovin off Superbad. I know that sounds weird, but it's like, why would you give your name McLovin? And it's like, well, I don't know. That was the connection I made. It's a good movie. It's from the 1960s. The acting was amazing and it was really funny. Some of the stuff was a little dated for me, but I definitely one of those movies I want to rewatch. It was James Earl Jones, one of his first films, so you'll see him in there as well. He has a small role in it, so that's kind of interesting. So yeah, anyone that likes Lion King, things like that, it was a good watch, and I'm really glad I watched it. The acting, like I said, was so well done. Yeah, highly recommend if you're interested in watching it. It's a great movie. So let's move on. So we were watching that movie, and Buddy, of course, we got pizza, and Buddy, of course, was buddying and was like, of course I'm gonna get some pizzas, you know what I mean? So he was being extra cute. And of course he got some pizza. And so Buddy likes to just hang out. So he'll move around Kermie, he'll move around my dad, he'll move around to me, right? Like he likes to make his like, hey, like, he just loves everybody, right? And so, but during it, I noticed, and I leading up to it, I caught it once on camera, but just for like a second, because he, like, I said his name and it like made him like thing. But he's been like staring at walls, like in distance, and like kind of doing his ear back, kind of like just staring at walls more lately. And I kind of noticed during this thing, he was near me on the couch. He was sitting on the couch, and he kind of like does this thing where he likes to lay his head on my lap, and we cuddle, right? Um, and so it's just like usually his head, right? Because he's a big dog and he knows he's a big dog. And so like we're sitting there, but before this, he started kind of doing that restless thing where he just kept staring at walls and kind of having a serious face. And I'm like, I don't like it when my baby does that because my baby's my baby boy, like, And so I was noticing it and I was like, that's kind of weird. And then all of a sudden he kept staring like across my lap, right? And like kind of was like restless and jumped in my lap. And I posted it on my Instagram. You can't really tell it's my lap, but his whole freaking body was on my lap and he was just like staring down something. And it was like, it wasn't like he was scared, like, oh, I need to be in mommy's lap, because he would go behind my back that way. Like he's done that before where he's like, ooh, the vacuum's scary. And he goes behind my back. It was like he was protecting us from something and like was like just staring. And then finally, like he calmed down and just got off my lap. But it was like a good 5-10-ish minutes, like where he just sat on my lap, like on guard, like looking at something. And I'm like, this is new. Like, and again, he wasn't growling, he wasn't barking, but he was alert, is the best way I can describe it. And just on top of me. It was weird. It was very strange. And it was very like, I don't know. And I don't know if he saw something right there. So that's why he just sat on my lap or whatever. But like, it was strange. It was odd. And then he finally like, and then he went into like, after he calmed down, he went into away from us a little bit and like lay down. And then later on he came back and was like more himself, and then just like sat like where he was spread out and just put his face on my lap. And I was like, you know, comforting after that, and he just like fell asleep. But it was weird because leading up to that he was staring more and more walls, and like I said, when we were watching the movie, he just started looking at things on walls, and I was like, maybe he just sees a bug or something, you know what I mean? But like I said, when he sees bugs, he usually like tries to go nom, 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 tries to eat it or something like that, like or like runs away from it if they're like freaking him out a little bit too much, you know what I mean? Like it was nothing like that. So that was strange. She's never like crawled into my lap before, like on guard, like almost like he was like, I'll cover you. And I'm like, what are you covering me from? Like it was odd, but I wanted to share that quick story to close this out. I know this has been a weird yap sesh. I could have gotten longer. I was going to go longer, but I want to talk more about the ghost stuff, and I will, but yeah, there was more I was gonna say, but it kind of like left my brain. And Aishi has always told me if it leaves your brain, then we can save it for another time. And I'm like, okay. So, so I'm gonna listen to him, and I'm gonna go eat my early lunch. But I hope everyone is having a great 3-day weekend. Like I said, I hope everyone's staying safe. This is the next. I started recording this yesterday. It's a new day, so hope everyone has a great rest of the long weekend. And other than that, thank you for listening. And as always, stay curious and stay tuned into the supernatural. Thanks for watching.